Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Score with Brett Wiseman here at Tobacco Road Sports Radio, tobaccoroadsportsradio.com. Immediately, right off the bat, before we get to the Panthers and the rest of the NFL and the Aaron Rodgers thing and college football and all that, this is the part of the program, as you can probably tell by my shirt with a G and a number 10 on it, that all of you that slept on Jordan Love, that said he was not going to be very good, that the Bears that spent all this money in the offseason on fixing their defense were going to feast on the first-time starting quarterback in week one, this is the part, this is the show where all of you eat your words. You swallow them. They taste bitter, don't they? They taste bad. Really bad. Because this guy, Jordan Love, shut everybody up. Everybody that had anything to say about this guy, about him being mid, not very good, may take a while to come into the offense. Crickets. You don't hear the critics right now. All Jordan Love is hearing right now is praise. All he's hearing is praise, and every single one of you that doubted him, that slept on him, that said this Packers team was going to be terrible, that said they were going to finish in last place, seem to forget that, A, their opponent won one game last year. They had the number one pick. They traded it, but they were the worst team in football. And the Bears go out and spend all this money in the offseason. Oh, cool, we fixed our defense. Bears fans all summer long, once the schedule came out. Yeah, we finally get to take ownership of our franchise back. Guess what? It's been transferred. Bill of sale completed. Jordan Love owns the Chicago Bears now. Any reasonable, slightly intelligent fan base would not have talked smack before this, and for sure would stop talking smack now. But Bears fans, collectively, have the IQ of a ping pong ball. They're not that bright. Neither is their defense. Neither is their coaching staff. Justin Fields especially is not bright when it comes to throwing the football. Justin Fields and Lamar Jackson get to compare to each other a lot in terms of quarterbacks who are running backs. Here's the difference between the two of them. When Lamar Jackson needs to make a pass, he can make the pass. He can fit it into a tight window when he has to. Justin Fields could not hit water if he fell out of a boat. He could not hit the broadside of a barn if there was a target painted on it. If he can't run the ball, he's not a threat. And Joe Barry and that Packers defense proved that. And they made Justin Fields prove that himself. All day long on the Fox broadcast, the talk was, oh, it's just Justin Fields' third year. Is he going to make the leap? There was no talk about Jordan Love or anything like that. But, he did what he does. And what he's going to continue to do all year long. Justin Fields, you had that whole conversation. When does he make the leap? What needs to happen for him to make the leap? Greg Olsen goes, well, he's got to have an offensive line. Guess what? He got sacked 5 times. It's a bad football team. Am I taking the result for the Packers with a grain of salt? Yeah, a pretty big one. Yeah, you're going to get a lot of confidence from going into a divisional game and winning it in that fashion. And number 10, completely silencing all of his doubters. Might I remind you that Jordan Love was the only quarterback in the NFL in week one to throw for 3 touchdowns. And still, currently, even after Thursday Night Football, leads the NFL in passer rating. So if there were any critics left out there, I think they're hiding somewhere, like that gif of Homer Simpson sliding back into that bush. They're not very loud now, are they? And look at the throws that Jordan Love made. The second touchdown to Romeo Doubs in the fourth quarter, that fade route, if you put 12 and 17 on those guys' backs, you wouldn't know a difference. Jordan Love picked up a lot of things from Aaron Rodgers. A lot. He was throwing the ball off 1 foot. He was throwing the ball sidearm, sideways, throwing fade routes, fade stops. He fumbled a snap and threw it up for grabs. Granted, Luke Musgrave was wide open. There was no one within 20 yards of him. But the one thing that Aaron Rodgers always has gotten credit for is improvisation. Jordan Love did some improvisation on multiple occasions on Sunday afternoon. Threw for nearly 300 yards. Only threw 6 incompletions. No picks. No fumbles. Nothing. No turnovers. And the Packers defense goes out there and just goes to town on Justin Fields and this offense that thought they were going to take the leap. No, they didn't take the leap. The Packers, when you look at some of the hits that they made, the one that started the scuffle was a legal hit. Justin Fields had both feet still in the green when Jair Alexander knocked him out of bounds. It was because of who knocked him out of bounds that the Bears got mad. But it wasn't just Jair Alexander. Lucas Van Ness had a sack. Devondre Wyatt had a sack. Rashawn Gary played about 10 snaps. He's on a pitch count coming off the ACL injury from last year. He got a sack. 2 guys you've never heard of got sacks. Aaron Jones makes such an impact on the field. He torched that defense, although we knew he was going to be good coming into the year. Christian Watson didn't even play. He was out with a hamstring injury. So imagine what more they could do with Christian Watson on the field. That being said, a pretty tough test at Atlanta on Sunday. So Soldier Field Week 1 was a pretty darn good road test, and Jordan Love lived up to it. So if he could live up to that with all the hype that preceded that game, there is no reason that he can't go into Atlanta and absolutely cook before the home opener against the Saints in Week 3. Everyone that said this Packers team was not a threat is wrong. I've said that, and if that win Week 1 doesn't make you think, it might not make you believe, but it makes you think, might have been wrong about this. It should. If it doesn't, you're either not paying attention, you're not smart, or you don't want to believe it. Any one of those 3 things. That being said, I know what I'm going to hear. I've heard it already from people. That because I wanted Aaron Rodgers gone, that I was happy that he got hurt. I thought it was I thought it was karma. No. You got to think here. I'm 26 years old. Yes, I was named after Brett Favre. Aaron Rodgers took over as the starting quarterback when I was in the 5th grade. I grew up watching more of Aaron Rodgers than I did of Brett Favre. I got 9 years of Brett Favre and 15 of Aaron Rodgers in terms of my lifetime. I love me some Aaron as a Packer. Okay? I feel for him. I really do. And that bar in Milwaukee that had the deal with the Jets lose thing, all those Packer fans that were upset that they had to pay the bar tab, I hope they came to their senses when they got home of the magnitude of what happened. Because it's not just bad. First of all, it's actually bad for the Packers. Because now they only get a 2nd round pick. Because Rodgers had to play 65% of the snaps for that to become a 1st round pick. Now it's only a 2nd round pick. It's 2nd round pick, but it's not a 1st round pick. Everybody went into this thinking, oh yeah, that's a shoe-in. 65% of the snaps? Give me. 1st round pick? No. It's not just bad for the Jets. It's bad for football. All the hype, all the build-up, the hard knocks, everything. If you are a fan of football, this is not good. It stinks. It sucks. It's terrible. And it also sucks that we've been having this artificial turf injury conversation for as long as we have, and it takes someone of Aaron Rodgers' magnitude to go down for something to happen. But I think that's what's going to happen. I don't think the NFL was prepared to do anything or make any kind of mandate on grass until, oh my gosh, look at all this guy we spent all this marketing money on, and the Jets spent all this extra marketing money on. That game at MetLife Monday night, there were more tickets given away for that game than when the Super Bowl was there between the Broncos and Seahawks about 10 years ago. 84,000 people, a stadium record, were at that game. Great part, Vinny Testaverde, September 12th, 1999, a year after the Jets had made the AFC Championship game, tore his left Achilles. 4 plays into the game. Guess who the Jets' honorary captain was? Vinny Testaverde. That is called a bad omen. Lo and behold, what happened happened. But when you look at the injury, it's clear what happened. And a lot of people I heard, and I was one of them, said it didn't look that bad initially. You go back and slow it down a little bit. All the weight comes down on the heel. And I went back and watched the play when I heard the reports starting to surface and circulate that it might have been, or it was feared to be, an Achilles problem. I went back and watched the play and saw all of Rodgers' weight and all of the weight of the defender fall on his heel. And this is new turf at MetLife, by the way, that's supposed to be safer. The simple fact is, there's no give with a turf surface. If that same play happened on grass, Aaron Rodgers plays the next drive. Because there's something to weather that energy, those forces. There's give in the surface. He's basically driving his heel into carpet at that point, not more of the earth. There's concrete under there. That's all that's left, not dirt. His heel stopped. And I had it, when I saw that he had gotten up, I didn't process it at the time. But when he got up, stood up for about 3 seconds, and then went straight back down, after I had watched the play and then saw him do that, I said, oh, yep, he felt the pop. He felt the pop. Because you could tell when he plopped back down, he had that look on his face of, you got to be kidding me. He had that look of, I really cannot show that I'm in excruciating pain. I don't want to show I'm in excruciating pain. But I know what this is. I know how bad this hurts. I know how bad the result is going to be. And I know I'm not playing another snap, another down this season. He had that, why now? Why here? Jets fans had a lot of the same look. I'm kind of upset that it happened because I was really, really curious to see what he was going to do with the Jets. And now we've been robbed of that opportunity because the NFL continues to okay playing surfaces that are wildly unsafe. And of all the times the NFL has had to look themselves in the mirror about player safety, as far as they've come on that, they got to do something about this turf situation. Desmond Johnson coming up on the other side of this timeout.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Score with Brett Wiseman here on Tobacco Road Sports Radio, TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com. It's been a long week, and I just spent an entire segment yelling at all of you about how you shouldn't have doubted Jordan Love. Again, I am wearing the Jordan Love t-shirt. Desmond Johnson has joined the program today to talk about the Carolina Panthers, who unfortunately did not have quite the successful debut that we were all hoping. There's a lot to clean up on all three phases, really, not just both sides of the football, special teams as well. But there were a few plays that Bryce Young made. We talked all summer about how ahead of his years he seemed. There were a few instances in plays and reads that he made on Sunday afternoon that seemed to make him regress a little bit in my mind.
I don't know if it would be regression. I think it's just more rookie quarterbacks are going to throw interceptions in the NFL regardless of who they are. I mean, Peyton Manning threw like 28 of them his rookie year. It just happens. They're going to see exotic secondary coverage packages and things they never saw in college. It's all faster. The windows are smaller. And I think Sunday was a learning lesson for Bryce in terms of understanding all that. The windows he had to throw in at Alabama were much larger than what he's going to see in the NFL. And he did try to squeeze in some there. Some he actually got through. But I wouldn't say it's regression. If anything, it's just he finally got a chance to see live bullets. Now, if he goes out there on Monday night and does the exact same thing against the Saints, then yeah, okay, now we got some meat that we need to, divvy up and figure out what to do with. But Bryce, one of the things coming out of college was his ability to process things faster than everybody else, and the mental aspect that he has in the game. So I would think that if anything, it might have been a benefit for the Panthers to have played the way they did because they had some tape to look at over the next week and things to correct and adjust. And Bryce can really sink his teeth into that. He tends to play well on big stages, regardless of what stage he's at, high school, college, or pro. So, I mean, this will be nationally televised Monday night TV on ESPN. We'll see how he does, but I'm not worried about him regressing or anything at all. I think it was just a matter of just the first time he got out there and a couple of plays didn't go his way. He just got robbed basically by Jesse Bates.
Coaches will say this from time to time that sometimes bad tape is good tape or bad tape is the best tape because you know what not to do the next time. Yeah, this was an important game coming right out of the gate. You lose a divisional matchup, but on the flip side of it, now you've got tape against a divisional opponent to go back on later on in the year. Like you said, yeah, there were a lot of miscues and mishaps, and it certainly wasn't what any of us wanted to see coming right out of the gate, especially against a team like Atlanta that has been a thorn in the side in recent years in terms of kind of the back and forth. That series has been really even the past 5 or 6 years. So to come out of the gate like that and much like the games towards the end of the season last year, leave a lot of opportunities on the table. Miscues and mishaps. This was another game, it felt like, where 5 or 6 plays go differently. It's a completely different outcome.
Yeah, really. I mean, if you look at the box score, if you didn't watch the game and just looked at the box score, the Panthers outrushed the Falcons. They passed for more yards. They had the ball 10 minutes longer in time of possession. They did everything you want to do. So, I can't say that, the game plan didn't work. They clearly had a game plan coming in. If you look at the passing chart for what Bryce threw in the game, he only had 2 passes that he threw beyond 10 yards in the air. Everything else was all short and underneath, and he threw 38 times. That's by design. That's not forced. That's not the defense forcing it. That's Frank Wright saying, hey, this is your first NFL game. Let's just get you completing some NFL passes, get you feeling good about that. Then we'll see how the game goes. And they were moving the ball without him having to throw it 30, 40 yards in the air. So they didn't have an issue going up and down the field, especially in the first half. And that's what I wanted to see. The running game was really strong with Chuba Hubbard and Miles Sanders. The offensive line is doing well, although they've got some issues now with injury. And the Saints are going to have a weaker offensive line than what the Falcons did. The Falcons probably have the best offensive line in our division. And we saw what Brian Burns and Derek Brown was doing to it all first half. So, I mean, there's some nuggets there. I wouldn't, if you're a Panther fan, I wouldn't say all is lost because we lost the Falcons week 1. If anything, I'd be more encouraged about what I did see. And hopefully with the coaching staff they brought in the staff because their previous staff wouldn't make corrections on previous weeks. This staff has enough, experience to draw off of that and to come up with a game plan to defeat the Saints. So I'm still not worried. I still believe in the Panthers and the front office and the coaching staff. I'm not going to abandon them after one game, really one quarter of football last Sunday.
You hit the nail on the head right there. This coaching staff knows how to make adjustments and will make adjustments because they are smart enough to make those adjustments. The previous administration, not even close. This coaching staff knows how to make adjustments, and they're going to put their word down that they're going to get it done.
Yeah, I mean, people tend to forget who's on this staff. Like, it was crazy, and I need to stop doing it, getting online and going on Facebook or social media right after a Panthers game, because it's just wild. People are like,
sometimes it's just fun. It's insanely entertaining to see how many people come up with.
If you cannot respond back, I'm the type that'll respond back. I just don't agree. I'm like, no. So, like, I saw fire Frank Wright. We should have kept Steve Wilkes. Trade Bryce Young. Call up the Rams and get those 2 firsts for Brian Burns. Like all kinds of stuff. Like, just if the Panthers lose a game, it's like the world ended and like we did everything wrong. And I went back and watched the replay of the game 2 days later just to see if it matched the vibe online. That game was 10-10, like start of the fourth quarter. Like, I mean, it was a rock fight pretty much the whole day, and nobody was really pulling ahead until Bryce did that second interception, which led to a touchdown for Atlanta, and that made it 17-10, and that kind of gave them the space to really knock the game out once they had another long drive later on in the fourth and made it 24-10 with like 3-4 minutes left in the game. So it wasn't like Carolina was down 2 touchdowns the whole day. In fact, they had the lead for most of the middle of this game. So again, I'm not very concerned about it. This Panther team, the way it's constructed, they're going to lose some games they probably should have won, and they're going to win a couple games they probably should have lost.
That's just what happens with teams that aren't necessarily overly young, but also aren't necessarily overly experienced. The Panthers are somewhere in the middle of that grouping, and we talked about this a lot over the summer. As good as this defense is, as good as we know this defense can be, what was going to be one of the biggest keys for Bryce Young? Not turning the ball over. What was the turning point in the game? Tied 10-10 going into the fourth. Defense is dominating. You got a pitcher's duel, and boom, you turn the ball over. It turns into a touchdown for Atlanta. That's where the game swung.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, the turnovers and just momentum. Football is a game of momentum, and there was a couple of periods of time during that game. The first momentum shift was in the first quarter. Carolina drives all the way down to the Atlanta 11-yard line. Drive looks great. And there's 4th and 1. They do some weird formation, hand it off to Chuba Hubbard and shotgun, and he basically just runs into the line. They don't pick up the first down. Atlanta gets the ball on loss of down, and it completely changed the game. Atlanta went down, and I think they kicked a field goal, and it kind of started the run from there. So it's just a game of momentum, a game of, back and forth. And I think Bryce got a chance to taste that Sunday. So I fully expect a more prepared Bryce Young on Monday night as opposed to, I can't even say he wasn't prepared Sunday. Because, I mean, even after the interceptions, he still was poised, didn't get rattled, came right back out, had drives, which is what we were hoping we were going to see. We just got a chance to see it week 1. So some of the questions I had were answered, even though it was a loss. Some of the stuff made me feel a bit better about him being the number 1 overall pick.
You knew you were going to run into growing pains with him and things like that, but you said it right there. I think it was key to see how he handled that kind of in-game adversity, how he handled when he makes mistakes. And he was very stoic. He was very poised. He wasn't, as you said, he wasn't rattled when he went back out there for the next drive. He was very cool, very calm, very collected. And as we look ahead to Monday night, I think that's going to be even more important to have. He makes his first start on Monday Night Football.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see what they do. I'm actually expecting more of a heavier dose of run game with Brady Christensen going to IR, the starting left guard. You don't really want to put a patchwork offensive line in front of a rookie quarterback right now. So I would assume they're going to put a heavy emphasis on the run game and not make it where Bryce has to go out and win a game for them. If they can, not turn the ball over to the other team, that always helps. And basically, like I've told some of the other hits I had to do earlier today, a lot of them in New Orleans. If Carolina could stop the run, keep New Orleans under 100 yards rushing, which they should be able to do with no Alvin Kamara and the front line that we have, and if we can get over, say, 130 ourselves rushing, we should win the game. The Saints aren't this daunting team. No one in the NFC South is. So every game is winnable, and we've got 16 more of them. So it should be a fairly even matchup, but this is a game definitely, especially at home in Charlotte, this is a game we can win. Hopefully we're not wearing the all-black uniforms, though, because if we're wearing the all-black, we're probably going to lose. We have a horrific record in our best outfits, so hopefully they're not pulling the all-black out for the night game.
Well, hopefully if that does get worn, which I kind of hope it does, because I'm very partial to the black helmets. Of course, there's an App Stadium black matte helmet.
I love them
my
all black, but yeah, I think they've only won one time ever, like when they've worn, I think like 1 in 7 or something like that when they wear them. So it's like a love.
It's so funny how when teams unveil the most gorgeous of uniforms right out of the gate, they play like dog snot in them.
Yeah.
I remember when the Cardinals unveiled the powder blues every Saturday road game. I think they lost 14 straight Saturday road games when they wore those. Like every team that unveiled, like the Dallas Stars unveiled these Disney Tron looking sweaters. Oh my gosh, those are fantastic. They didn't even win a game. Didn't even get a point in like 10 straight games that they wore them. It's so funny how that works out. But let's flip it to New Orleans. You said, and we have said, ad nauseum, this is not a threatening team. Now everybody on the internet seems to think that Derek Carr all of a sudden is having a second coming out party just because he had one good game in a domed environment.
I'm not tricked by that. I mean, he's still Derek Carr.
Nope.
You know what I mean? Like,
he still made his wife cry.
And my understanding from talking to Saints, I've had to do in the past 2 days, I've done a radio hit in New Orleans, and I've done 2 separate podcast appearances in New Orleans previewing this game for different entities, and they've all kind of echoed the same thing. The Saints didn't play very well last week against the Titans. Like, they were lucky to get away with the win. So they're kind of nervous. They're kind of nervous going into this game because they don't know what to expect from Carolina, and they know their own deficiencies. So, I mean, no Alvin Kamara. He's still suspended. He won't be back till after week 4. Apparently, the offensive line for New Orleans was a turnstile against the Titans, and I would like to think that the Panthers actually have a better front line than the Titans do. So they're a little worried about that.
You would think.
They saw the running numbers, so they were a little concerned about that because I guess New Orleans was having an issue stopping the run. They're concerned. Like, they're not going into this beating their chest. I mean, the Panthers swept the Saints last year in spite of themselves, with 2 different coaches, 2 different basically rosters in the same season, and swept
2 different quarterbacks.
2 different quarterbacks. So I mean, they're more worried than a lot of Panther experts are. The Panther fans think we're going 0-17, so they're always worried. But they're pretty even. Well, they're somewhat evenly matched, but I would say talent-wise, there's more top-level talent on Carolina's roster than there is overall on the Saints roster at the moment that's available.
Yeah, you the nail on the head right there was the front 4. Yeah, Derek Carr was running for his life a lot of that game Sunday afternoon. People seem to forget that. They also don't have a running game to fall back on without Alvin Kamara. When you have Brian Burns and that whole front 4, they can just go to town and feast on this patchwork, great value Walmart generic offensive line that the Saints have thrown out there in front of their now brand new franchise quarterback. I don't know if you saw the clip, but there was a clip from inside the NFL where Derek Carr just took a shot right to the teeth and got right back up. Titans guy was like, I knew it was a flag. But it almost seemed like the guy that made the hit almost felt like, I can do anything I want because I get back there so easily.
I mean, that's a possibility. You don't really know what these defensive linemen are thinking with the rules that are in place right now. So I could see someone testing the waters, to see how far they can go in a football game. That probably happens every Sunday.
Especially when the offensive line you're playing against is just traffic cones and all you have to do is avoid them, run around them, not run through them. That being said, very quickly while we still have you, I want to get your thoughts on what Tampa Bay was able to go into Minnesota and pull off on Sunday. Is that also an anomaly, or did Baker Mayfield show us something?
Actually, I was going to say Minnesota sounds like the same situation that happened to Carolina. Kirk Cousins had 2 interceptions. I think there was a fumble, and those turnovers ended up doing in the Vikings. I think they only threw the ball like 14 times or something like that. So I refuse to give Tampa credit for for being gifted a game pretty much. I need to see them kind of go out and win one on their own. I saw enough of Baker Mayfield last year here for me to, even I didn't watch that game, I'm not going to sit here and think that Baker Mayfield actually led them to victory. I think he was just kind of on the bus. So we'll see. Now, I could be wrong. I mean, I didn't actually watch that game. I'm just looking at it from what people have told me and highlights. But I think it was a little bit more of Minnesota losing it than it was Tampa winning it. But I think Tampa's still going to be securely in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes when this is all said and done. Or hell, Shadur Sanders.
Yes, one thing. Baker, who knows? It might even be him at this point. But Baker Mayfield won that game with his legs on just on one play. All he needed to do was get a first down. He got it with his legs. Boom, game over. Everyone seems to forget the 14 minutes and 15 seconds that happened prior to that, which was the Vikings doing what the Vikings do is imploding, which is why they'll never get one of these, which is a Vince Lombardi trophy. Desmond Johnson, thanks so much. Host of Bleav in Carolina Panthers podcast. Enjoy Monday Night Football, and we'll have you on next week to chat all about it.
You got it, man.
All right, Steve Wiseman's coming back on the other end. We'll head to the collegiate ranks right after this.
Back here one final time on The Score with Brett Wiseman here on Tobacco Road Sports Radio, TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com. Steve Wiseman joining the program once again this week to talk a little bit of college football. Steve, another eventful week in college football, and for the team that you specifically cover, the Duke Blue Devils, most good, but a few things to definitely circle and improve upon from the week 2 outing.
Yeah, I mean, they played Lafayette, an FCS team. So, they were obviously bigger and stronger and faster than they were going to win the game handily. Ended up winning it 42-7. They had some issues with fumbles again. Lost a fumble early in the game. Also missed a field goal late in the first quarter. They had some pre-snap penalties, only 3 this week, as opposed to 7 against Clemson. So, as Mike Elko said, that's progress. But, pre-snap, you want 0. Like, those are, kind of unforced errors type thing. So, they're making progress. But, they ended up winning the game handily, which you thought. It was a short week, which is odd in college football. To play a game on 5 days rest, basically. And so, now we got to see if the residuals of that carry into this week, because they were still kind of holding back in practice a little bit, maybe only going to 80% of the time instead of a full practice, because they still want to make up for, having played 2 games in 5 days, where you don't want to, get the kids with dead legs and all that. So once they get through this week, they'll be kind of back on their regular routine. But 2-0 is what you wanted, obviously. Can't do it better than that.
You can't. And now you go into a rematch here with Northwestern, a team that in non-conference, this is a matchup that has been, to put it mildly, pretty interesting over the past few years with how it's shaken out. And you look at the state of Northwestern's program right now and all the uncertainty that's going on there with the Pat Fitzgerald situation and all of that going down as close to the start of the season as it did. It's a Northwestern team that is in a very, very different spot from where it's been the past few times that Duke has played them. This is not a program that has stability right now. This is a teetering boat instead of a floating one, I would say.
No doubt about it. And, I was thinking about it this week as I was kind of writing preview stories about this game and thinking back a year ago when Duke was going to Northwestern in week 2, and Northwestern had gone over to Ireland and pounded Nebraska. And we thought, whoa, okay, maybe this Northwestern team is pretty good, right? And Duke was going up there. Remember, they were coming off all the awful seasons at the end of the Cutcliffe era, and we didn't know what Elko was going to do. So think about how different it is, right? And Duke went in there and won that game on the road, 31-23, which showed us the first little sign of, hey, this team might be a lot better than what we're thinking, especially if they beat this Northwestern team, which just beat Nebraska, right? And then, of course, Northwestern ended up going 1-11 last year. They lost the next week to Southern Illinois. I mean, it was just like weird, So Duke ended up going 9-4. So now fast forward to this year, and Duke's the one that's like a 20-point favorite. They were installed when the week started. I think it's been bet down a little bit to 18 or so. But who would have thought Duke would be a 3-touchdown favorite over anybody in the Power Five? But that's where we are with Northwestern's troubles. They didn't play well their first game against Rutgers on a hot day in New Jersey, and then last week they were an underdog at home to UTEP, but they came out and won 35-7. So got to give them credit for that, for showing that they were a better team than what people thought they were. So I don't expect this to be a 3-touchdown. I think Northwestern will cover. That's just my opinion. I think Duke will win. I'm not sure about 3 touchdowns, but we'll see.
For those of you that are thinking about betting on Duke to cover, I highly advise you to think back to last week when North Carolina was a near 3-touchdown favorite against App State and went to double overtime. So the 18.5-point favorite of Tobacco Road School, 0-1 right now, I wouldn't follow that trend if I were you. And I haven't talked about that game until just now because I'm still licking the wounds from the missed pass interference. Anyways, I'm not going to cry about it for too long.
Tough.
But yeah, I'll ask you about it though, since it is your neck of the woods.
Sure.
That was that was just a good football game. Period.
It was, and unfortunately for me, it was going on about the same time the Duke game was on, so I didn't get to see very much of it. I saw some of the fourth quarter because after Duke's game was over, we put it on in the press box there. But so I saw the field goal shenanigans at the end of regulation and all that. But what I took away from it was that South Carolina's offensive line is god awful because Carolina had 9 sacks against them and 0 against App. I knew they'd have a good offensive line. They always do. I counted on that. But that just told me, boy, it's really better than South Carolina because South Carolina is just a sieve. And that was my takeaway from that. But good for, Appalachian came in after had kind of an up and down opener, right, with Gardner Webb. But boy, really played well against the Tar Heels and had them on the ropes. And, probably should have had a chance to win the game there right at the end. And if that penalty's called.
When you look at this was the third game of that contract. And Mac Brown said afterwards, I don't want to play these guys anymore. And a lot of people took that disrespectfully. He said, look, I'll enjoy my house in Linville Falls, which is about 10 minutes outside of Boone, by the way, for those of you who would like to know where that is. Mac Brown also did coach at App State way back in the day, but
he did.
That's for reference. I'm going to enjoy my house in Linville, love my mountain home. I don't want to play these suckers ever again because they make me want to pull my hair out. A lot of people took that disrespectfully. But I think what Mac Brown really meant by it was, this team is so good, they drive me nuts every time I play them. And when you look at this matchup in particular, we talked about it being Joey Aguilar's first collegiate start. He goes out there and just absolutely shoves. Nate Noel rushes for 100-plus yards. Then you look at the Carolina flip side of things. Drake May does what Drake May does. The backup running back for Carolina. 250-plus rushing yards. He was not the starter. There's a lot for both sides to take out of this game of things they didn't know they had that now they have.
Right. Exactly. British Brooks was the big runner the week before against the Gamecocks, and Hampton we knew was good. He's a 5-star, whatever. Came out right here in the Raleigh area in Clayton, and but he got his chance. He took advantage of it, so good for him. It just shows us, the depth that they have. But back to Mac and this series and what he said about it. He inherited this series. He didn't sign up for it because that contract was done before he was named the coach to replace Larry Fedora. Fedora and Bubba Cunningham came up with that contract. So that tells you. So Mac walked into it like, okay, we'll do this. And the first time he played him, they lost. That was early in his first season of his second tenure here. And he's like, okay, we got twice more. We got to do this. Okay, well. And then he would have thought by now he would have built up the program to where it wouldn't be as difficult. Right? That was the hope. But, App is a quality program, and it's proven that you can't just walk in and roll over them like you could maybe the old days when they were FCS or whatever, playing one of the ACC schools. So, that's it. That's it. I look at it as that was the ultimate respect. Like, he just doesn't want to do it. That's it. you guys are hard. Like, I don't want to, I'd rather pay somebody else. So, that's the way I would take it, is that way.
Yeah, it was automatic. Honestly, it was when I read the quote. And there were a lot of App State people on Twitter that I saw and that were kind of saying, "Oh, it was disrespect. This is a soft comment." Yada. He was like, "No, this is a good thing." He's saying that App State frustrates the heck out of him every time they're on the other sideline, and it's a chess match with not just Sean Clark but the entire coaching staff with everything that Mac thinks he has figured out. App State, flips it around. Every time he plays them, he's got to look himself in the mirror after the game and be like, well, that didn't go how I thought it was going to go. And I think this series, overall, all the pundits and, people that are saying, all right, it was a good series, let's leave it. I think this should be a yearly thing because you look at the results. All 3 games in this series were decided by a combined 11 points.
Mm-hmm.
34-32 first game, 64-63 second game, 40-34 the third game. The third game had the largest margin of victory. You had 2-1 and then
it was
6.
double overtime. It was double overtime.
And it was double overtime.
The
game last year, he had like 37,000 combined points in the fourth quarter. Yeah. This series, it's not just good for regional college football. You look at how many fans Carolina brought to Boone last year. You look at how many fans App brought to Chapel Hill both times. It was really,
right,
in both stadiums, 60-40 with visiting fans. It's not just good for regional college football. From a national perspective, there were a lot of eyes on that game. And for App State to perform how they did and Carolina to come out of it with the victory and be as resilient as they were, that was an entertaining, good, old-fashioned college football game that is entertaining to more than just us in this area. That was entertaining to a lot of people.
Absolutely. And it's one that, people are flipping around on a Saturday afternoon. They see App and UNC are playing again. They remember, oh my God, that was a crazy 70-69. I think score, whatever the score was wrong, but that's what they'll think. They'll say, oh yeah, let's check this out. And they always play tight, and it's in-state and everything. So, it was on ACC Network. So unfortunately, we don't get ratings for them. They're not part of the rating system yet, even though the network's like almost 5 years old. I still need an explanation on that. We don't get a ratings point like we do.
Hello, Nielsen. We have questions.
Yeah, there's something going on there. But anyway, so we don't know how many people watch it. I'd like to know. I really would like to know because I'm thinking there's probably a pretty good number for Saturday night, an exciting game.
When we look at the national landscape, since you are an AP voter, Colorado got off to a little bit of a slow start, I would say, but they handled business against Nebraska. We'll get to them in a second. The game of the weekend was Texas-Alabama, and there were a lot of, this hasn't happened since, or this hasn't happened ever in that game. So let me read off a few of these to you. Quinn Ewers became the first non-SEC quarterback in Nick Saban's entire Alabama tenure to go into Tuscaloosa and throw for 300-plus yards. Tight end in that game for Texas had 100-plus yards receiving. First 100-yard receiver for Texas against an SEC school since, anybody remember this name? Jordan Shipley in the 2009 BCS National Championship game. Colt McCoy was slinging it to him. Speaking of Mac Brown, he was the head coach of that team, by the way. Nick Saban had not lost a home game by 2 scores at Alabama, ever. In the 16 years that he had been there. Never lost a home game by more than 1 touchdown until last Saturday night. Alabama had won 57 non-conference games, 21 straight home games, conference and non-conference. Both of those streaks came to an end. The biggest takeaway, I think, though, is the fact that Steve Sarkisian can now be the first one of Saban's understudies, not named Kirby Smart, that can say he went out and got the best of his mentor.
Yeah, definitely. Good for him. And it's a long time coming. He's had, up and down career and everything. And Saban actually kind of helped him revitalize his career, right? When he came there to be on his staff. So as far as the poll and everything, I moved Texas back up to fourth with that win. I had Alabama second in my ballot in the first 2 weeks, and moved them down to number 11. Moved Texas back up right behind Florida State. I thought, you go into Tuscaloosa and win, you just rattle off all those things, man. That's an accomplishment. So you get to reap some benefits for that. Now we'll see if they continue it and keep their place in the rankings. But yeah, it also tells me that there was a lot of doubts about Alabama this year because they're so young. They're all 5-star talents, right? They're really good, but they're a young team, and so they got some learning to do and some improving to do. They're not dead as far as the playoff goes because there's still a path for them, but they can't lose another game. I mean, we haven't seen a 2-loss team get in yet, so I don't think that's possible. But of course, if anybody could do it, it would be Alabama. They would get the benefit of the doubt. I'm thinking from the committee, depending upon who that second loss would be too. But anyway, so we'll see how they do it going forward. They do have a path to get there, and they have the talent. It's a matter if they can learn from this experience and they can get better. Because you saw a lot of shots of Saban on the sidelines, like talking to people about, hey, you were supposed to go here and you went there, like a lot of confusing, right? Because they're young, they're a lot of freshmen and stuff. So obviously, I think they'll be better in November than they are now. We'll see if it's going to be enough for them.
Let's look at the ACC schedule this week. Got Florida State noon kick at Boston College. They're a 28-point favorite. That seems a little bit steep. Wake Forest is going on the road at Old Dominion. That's a tough place to play. Just ask Virginia Tech how that went last year. And then you've got Louisville and Indiana in the noon window. So there's 3 pretty intriguing games right off the hop in the ACC on Saturday.
No doubt. And, Boston College is looking like they're going to be one of the worst teams in the league. So 28-point spread seems like a big number for a road team. But if anybody can go in there and do that, I think it's this Florida State team. They're pretty stacked. And Boston College, lost to Northern Illinois in the opener and then struggled with Holy Cross in week 2. So they haven't shown a whole lot there. The Wake ODU game will be intriguing to me. Louisville and Indiana will be interesting too. I think Louisville is probably the better team there, but and I think Wake's better than Old Dominion, but that doesn't matter when you go up there. They've pulled some upsets there, as you mentioned, beating Virginia Tech, right? So that'll be a cool one to look at before the second window of games, which Duke's going to be in playing Northwestern.
Yep, that second window, you talked about it. Virginia Tech and Rutgers. Sorry, I had to. Anytime Rutgers comes up and we're not talking about the 2007 season, I'm gonna fall asleep because unless Greg Schiano's on the sidelines, I don't want to hear about it. It's the only time Rutgers was ever entertaining to me in any way, shape, or form ever. Minnesota and UNC at 3:30. I'm not picking Minnesota, but PJ Flex Bunch. They got a big win in week 1 on that game-winning field goal against Nebraska. They get another victory last week. They come into this 2-0. Mm-hmm. Carolina's coming off a dogfight. Golden Gophers might be smelling a little blood in the water in which they're rowing the boat.
And they want to be, they want to be a ranked team. They want to get the attention of the country. This is how you do it. You go in there, you play a ranked team on the road that showed some vulnerability last week. So they've got a chance. If the Gophers want to get ranked, they can do it. As somebody who votes, this is your place, man. You want to earn it. This is where you do it.
Final game to ask you about, backyard brawl, Pitt and West Virginia. It's a 7:30 kick. Pitt pretty up and down against a Cincinnati team that I don't think a lot of people expected to be as good, losing the personnel that they had and moving up to the Big 12. So this is kind of a gut check moment right here for Pitt. Road rivalry game, primetime national network TV to see what they're made of.
It really is. And there are some that thought Pitt was worthy of top 25 preseason ranking. I heard some of that in the preseason. I heard, you talk about the top teams in the ACC, Florida State, Clemson, Carolina, that Pitt should have been mentioned, 4th or 5th in that. And that's not what we've seen so far. We didn't see it last week. So this is, again, a prove-it game. They want to show that they're worthy of being considered a contender in the ACC. This is where they got to do it. They really need to bounce back. I mean, obviously it's a rivalry game, so it's really important to them and to West Virginia too. But it's particularly coming off that kind of ugly loss to Cincinnati.
Should be an interesting Saturday, Steve. We got to get out of here. Thanks so much for hopping on. We'll see you next week.
Always good to be with you.
Enjoy your college football Saturday, your NFL Sunday, folks. We will see you all next week, same place, same time.